Two teenage girls have been charged with murder and armed carjacking after an Uber Eats driver was killed in Washington, D.C. last week. A bystander caught the incident on camera. We should warn you, there are disturbing images coming up. Two suspects took control of the car before speeding off down the street. The vehicle can then be seen slamming into a metal barrier while the driver is hanging onto the door. The car then crashes and flips on its side before two girls get out. The driver, 66-year-old Mohammed Anwar, was left face down on the sidewalk and later died in hospital. The suspects are aged 13 and 15. Their names have not been disclosed. Police say the girls used a taser on Mr. Anwar before taking his vehicle. Well, when reporting on the story, the news network CNN described it as an accident. That choice of wording has drawn widespread fury, with many people saying a carjacking cannot be considered accidental. Let's go live now to Conservative commentator Anthony Brian Logan. Anthony, welcome. The video is shocking. It's been viewed millions of times online and it's drawn a lot of strong opinions. What's your take on the events shown in Washington, D.C.?
Well, the events kind of put a highlight of what's been going on for quite a long time in places like Washington, D.C. and all over the nation. It seems like there's been a microscope on the whole anti-Asian hate crime because of the events in Atlanta. But I think a lot of the things that the media has been covering up are now coming to light as a result of that push forward the anti-Asian hate crime narrative. The victim, Mohammed Anwar, he's died, of course. He was of Pakistani origin. The two girls, they're black. Does that explain why the media are perhaps, Anthony Bryan, treading so carefully when describing this atrocity? We look back to similar events, perhaps with white people and Asians, and race was very much to the forefront. This time, it does not appear to be in the headlines. Oh, of course, absolutely. Like I was saying, that's the only reason why these kind of stories even meet the light of day at all, because if not for the whole Asian hate crime thing, this story probably would have just gone under the radar, never to be heard from at all on the mainstream media. It's the same thing as the Colorado shooting. I mean, that was a really big story, and it's spoken about a little bit here and there, but not so much when the race of the actual shooter was revealed and the victims. You have a person from Syria, which is in Asia technically, and you have all white victims. The narrative is not there. They always refer to the Atlanta shooting and never really anything else because of the race of the people involved. In recent attacks on Asian Americans, people have been very quick to point out a race hate motive, but not in this case, as you're going through. If those two girls were white, would it have been reported differently? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking about hate crimes. It would be a thing that would be reported over and over and over in the media. There would be all kind of people on TV talking about where their parents and what happened and why is this going on. And it's a continuation of the anti-Asian hate crimes. But because you have two black girls rather than two white girls, then all of a sudden we're kind of hands off in the mainstream media. Just about the situation itself, the footage is absolutely shocking, isn't it? What led to that kind of thing in the first place? Juveniles acting in such a hostile way there? Just a lack of parents, because, I mean, how do you have a 13 to 15-year-old with a taser, and then how are they carjacking this man? And then after the whole thing happened, after this man's on the ground, obviously lifeless, the one girl was like, hey, where's my phone in the car? No regard for human life, no empathy, just you have monsters that are created by lack of parents, bad parents, and also a very toxic environment that's been around for quite a while before all this anti-Asian hate crime narrative swept the media. With this now in focus, this being in the light, people seeing this, does it change the dial, Anthony Bryan? Does it tell people that, you know what, race hate may not be a motive, there may be more than one, and it's not just racial issues that it comes down to? Well, I mean, it has to. I mean, if people are being honest and they look at all these incidents for what they are, and then they say, okay, this couldn't have been race, that couldn't have been race,
Then you have to ask what else is going on. Then you dig a little bit deeper and you find out some more troubling issues about some of these places where a lot of Democrats have been in power for a long time. Policies have been in place for a long time that have divided the family. But since those things go against the typical leftist mainstream narrative, they're not spoken about at all. They're pretty much swept up under the rug.
Thanks as always for your take. Good to have you on the programme. Conservative commentator Anthony Brian Logan.